This is King Campbell. I think we'll see how long this one here is gonna be. It's King Campbell, 100 proof. Always bringing you nothing but the truth. We're gonna deep dive into E B DU Bois, and I'm gonna go as long as I can catch this flow. Oh man. King Campbell, 100 proof. Always bringing you nothing but the truth. E B DU Bois, William Edward Burhard DU Bois, February 23rd, 1868, August 27, 1963. Well, he had a good long life, didn't he? Was an American sociologist, psychologist, sociologist, historian, and Pan-Africanist, civil rights activist. Born in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, Du Bois grew up in a relatively tolerant and integrated community, and after completing graduate work at the University of Berlin and Harvard, where he was the first African American to earn a doctorate, he became a professor of history, psychology, and economics at Atlanta University. Du Bois was one of the founders of the National Association for Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, in 1909. E B DU Bois, born William Edward Burhard DU Bois, February 23rd, 1868, Great Barrington, Massachusetts, USA. Died August 27, 1963, at the age of 95, in Accra, Ghana. Citizen, United States, Ghana, from 1961. Education, Fisk University, Harvard University, the University of Berlin. Known for the soul of black folks, Black Reconstruction in America, The Crisis, Spouse, Nina Gomer. Married 1896, died 1950. Leola Shirley Graham, married 1951. Children, 2, including Yolande. Awards: Sparring Spingarn Medal, 1920. Lenin Peace Prize, 1959. Scientific career: fields, civil rights, sociology, history, institutions, Atlanta University, NAACP. Thesis: the suppression of the African slave trade. The suppression of the African slave trade to the United States of America, 1638-1870. Doctoral advisor: Albert Bushnell Hart. Influences: Alexander Cromwell, William Jane. Signature: long swooping W over the entire name. Backwards 3 cursive E. Bumblebee B, DU with a swirl, Du Bois, all spelled out. Early in Du Bois had risen to national prominence as a leader of the Niagara Movement, a group of African American activists who wanted equal rights for blacks. Du Bois and his supporters supposed that the Atlanta Compromise, an agreement crafted by Booker T. Washington, was provided that Southern blacks would work and submit to white politic rule, while Southern whites granted that blacks would receive basic education and economic opportunities. Instead, Du Bois insisted on full civil rights and increased political representation, which he believed would be brought about by the African American intellectual elite. He referred to this group as the talented 10, a concept under the umbrella of racial uplift, and believed that African Americans needed the chance for advanced education to develop its leadership. Racism was the main target of Du Bois' parliament, and he struggled protests against lynching, Jim Crow laws, and discrimination in education and employment. His cause included people of color everywhere, particularly Africans and Asians in the colonies, and he was a proponent of Pan-Africanism and helped organize the Pan-African Congress to fight the independence of the African colonies of the European powers. Du Bois made several trips to Europe, Africa, and Asia. After World War I, he surveyed the experiences of the African black soldier in France and documented widespread prejudices and racism in the United States military. Du Bois was a prolific author. His collections of essays, The Souls of the Black Folk, and the seminal works in the African American literature, and his 1935 magna opus, Black Reconstruction in America, challenged the prevailing orthodox of blacks were responsible for the failures of the Reconstruction era. Borrowing a phrase from Frederick Douglass, he popularized the use of the term color line to represent the injustice of the separate but equal doctrine prevalent in American social and political lives. He opened the souls of the black folks with the central thesis of much of his life's work. The problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. In his 1940 autobiography, Dusk of Dawn, in regards in part of one of the first scientific treatises in the field of American sociology, and he published two other life stories, all three containing essays in sociology, politics, his histories, and his role as editor of the NAACP journal, The Crisis. He published many influential pieces. Du Bois' influence in capitalism was the primary cause of racism, and he was generally sympathetic to the socialist cause throughout his life. He was an ardent peace activist and advocate, nuclear disarmament, the United States Civil Rights Act, embodying many of the reforms of which Du Bois had campaigned his entire life, was enacted in his years after his death. His early life, family, and childhood. As a child, Du Bois attended Congregational Church in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. Church members collected donations to pay Du Bois' college tuition. Of course they did. William Edwards Burghardt Du Bois was born on February 23, 1868 in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, to Alfred and Mary Savina Orrington Du Bois. Mary Savina Burghardt's family was part of the very small free black population of Great Barrington and had long owned land in the state. She was a descendant from Dutch, African, and English ancestry. William Du Bois' maternal great-grandfather was Tom Bogart, a slave born in West Africa around 1730. He was hailed by the Dutch colonists, Conrad Bogart. Tom briefly served in the Continental Army during the American Revolutionary War, which may have been how he gained his freedom. During his late 18th century, his son Jack Bogart was the father of Othello Bogart, who in turn was the father of Mary Sullivan Bogart. William D. Du Bois claimed Elizabeth Freeman as his relative and wrote that she had married his great-grandfather Jack Bogart, but Freeman was 20 years older than Bogart, and no record of such marriage had been found. It may have been Freeman's daughter, Betsy Humphrey, who married Bogart after the first husband, Jonathan Humphrey, left the area around 1811, and after Bogart's first wife died. If so, Freeman would have been William Du Bois' step-great-grandfather, great-great-grandmother. Anecdotal evidence supports Humphrey Marion Bogart. A close relationship of some form is likely. William Du Bois' parental grandfather was James Du Bois of Keeps, New York. Ethics, French American, and Huguenot origin, who fathered several children. A slave woman, one of James' mixed-race sons, was Alexander, who was born on Long Clay in the Bahamas in 1803. In 1810, he immigrated to the United States with his father. Alexander Du Bois traveled and worked in Haiti, where his father's son, Alfred, was with a mistress. Alexander returned to Connecticut, leaving Alfred in Haiti with his mother. Sometimes before 1860, Alfred Du Bois immigrated to the United States. Settling in Massachusetts, he married Mary Sullivan Bogart on February 5, 1867, in Hostinot Village in Great Burlington. Alfred left Mary in 1870, 2 years after their son William was born. Mary Du Bois moved with her son back to her parents' house in Great Burlington, where they lived there until they were 5. She worked to support her family, receiving some assistance from her brother and neighbors until she suffered a stroke in the early 1880s. She died in 1885. Great Barrington had a majority of European American community who generally treated Du Bois as well. He attended the local integrated public school and played with white schoolmates. As an adult, he wrote about racism that he felt as his fatherless child and being a minority in the town, but teachers recognized his abilities and encouraged his intellectual pursuits, and his reward and experience in academic studies led him to believe that he could use his knowledge to empower African Americans. He graduated from the town's Sears High School, where he decided to attend college. The congregation at his childhood church, the First Congregational Church of Great Barrington, raised the money for his tuition. University education. Title page of Du Bois. Harvard dissertation. Suppression of the African slave trade in the United States of America, 1638 to 1871. Relying on this money donated by neighbors, Du Bois attended Fisk University, a historical black college in Nashville, Tennessee. From 1885 to 1888, like other Fisk students, he relied on summer and intermittent teachings to support his universal studies. Du Bois taught school during the summer. In 1886, after his sophomore year, he traveled to the residences in the South. Du Bois' experiences with Southern racism, which at the time was encompassing of the Jim Crow laws, bigotry, suppressions of the black voting, and lynchings, and the later most reaching the peak in the next decade. After receiving a bachelor's degree from Fisk, he attended Harvard College, which did not accept coursework credits from Fisk. From 1888 to 1990, where he was strongly influenced by professors William James, prominent in American philosophy. Du Bois paid his way through 3 years at Harvard with the money from the summer job, and inheritance scholarship and loans for friends. In 1890, Harvard awarded Du Bois his second bachelor's degree, cum laude, in history. And in 1891, Du Bois received a scholarship to attend the sociology graduate school at Harvard. In 1892, Du Bois received a fellowship from the John F. Slaughter Fund of the Education of Freedmen to attend the University of Berlin in graduate work. While he studied in Berlin, he traveled extensively through Europe. He came of an age of intellectual and through the German capital while studying with some of his nation's most prominent social scientists, including Gustav von Schontler, Adolf Wagner, and Heinrich von Treckenschick. He also met Max Weber, who was highly impressed with Du Bois and would later cite Du Bois as a counterexample to racists, as alleging the inferiority of blacks. Weber would again meet Du Bois in 1904 on a visit to the U.S. just ahead of the publication of the seminal The Protestant Ethnic and Spirit of Capitalism. He wrote about his time in Germany. I found myself on the outside of an American world, looking in with me. Oh, got me. That sucks. All right. Well, we'll come back later.